stay inside. I'm pretty sure someone's got a gun. No, in fact, we're bloody positive of it. There's somebody going crazy shooting people here.
Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I'm Andrea.M. and this is a bonus episode of Real Crime Down Under for this week. This video is a subscriber suggested video, and the video that they wanted me to do, that they were interested in, was the Port Arthur Massacre. It happened back in 1996 in Port Arthur, Tasmania here in Australia. And the man behind the massacre was a man named John Bryant. So this is the bonus episode of Real Crime Down Under for this week. Before we get into today's video though, may I ask you please to consider subscribing to my channel if you have not done so already. If all things real crime, missing people, strange phenomena, paranormal, and everything in between is of interest to you, it would do me a huge favour if you could please subscribe to my channel, like, share and comment, and it just helps me out a ton in the YouTube algorithm. And as I keep mentioning, I am still trying to get to my 1,000 subscribers so I can join the partnership program, which is going to help me offer a lot more awesome things to you guys as my subscribers, and it's also going to help me make better videos for you. So if you want to be a part of that and help me out, I would be eternally grateful. Now, all that's being said, let's get into today's case, the Port Arthur Massacre, and the man who perpetrated the massacre, John Bryant. So, John Bryant was born on the 7th of May, 1967. He is known as an Australian mass shooter who murdered 35 people and injured 23 others in the Port Arthur Massacre between the 28th and the 29th of April, 1996. He is serving 35 life sentences plus 1,652 years without the possibility of parole at Risdon Prison in Hobart. So, Bryant was born on the 7th of May, as we just said, 1967, at the Queen Alexandra Hospital in Hobart, Tasmania. He was the first child of Maurice and Carleen Bryant. Although the family home was in Lena Valley, Bryant spent some of his childhood at their beach home in Carnarvon Bay. In a 2011 interview, his mother recalled that while Bryant was very young, she would often find his toys broken and that he was an annoying and difficult child. A psychologist's view was that Bryant would never be capable of holding down a job, as he would aggravate people to such an extent that he would always be in trouble. In 1979, 12-year-old Martin Bryant would be hospitalised in Royal Hobart Hospital, Tasmania, from an injury caused by a fireworks accident. While in the hospital, he would be interviewed by a local television station.
Do you think you'll be playing with firecrackers anymore?
Yes.
Don't you think you've learned a lesson from this?
Yes, but I'm still playing.
Locals recall abnormal behaviour by Bryant, such as pulling the snorkel from another boy while diving and cutting down trees on a neighbour's property. He was described by teachers as being distant from reality and unemotional. At school, Bryant was a disruptive and sometimes violent child who suffered severe bullying by the other children. After he was suspended from Newtown Primary School in 1977, psychological assessments noted, and this is, I always get to these parts of these cases and it's, psychological assessments noted that he tortured animals. And where have we seen this before? Just about every serial killer that we have documented on this channel. Most of the time, the majority of them begin this way. And it certainly sounds like Bryant was just one of these people that was just wrong since birth. So Bryant returned to school the following year with improved behaviour. However, he persisted in teasing the younger children. He was transferred to a special education unit at Newtown High School in 1980, where he deteriorated both academically and behaviourally throughout his remaining school years. Psychological and psychiatric assessments described Bryant's behaviour as an adolescent show, that he continued to be disturbed, and outlined the possibility of an intellectual disability. When leaving school in 1983, he was assessed for a disability pension by a psychiatrist who wrote the following: "He cannot read nor write, does a bit of gardening and watches TV. Only his parents' efforts prevent further deterioration. He could be schizophrenic, and parents face a bleak future with him." Bryant received a disability pension, although he also worked as a handyman and a gardener. In an examination after the massacre, forensic psychiatrist Ian Joblin found Bryant to be borderline mentally disabled with an IQ of 66, equivalent to an 11-year-old child. While awaiting trial, Bryant was examined by a court-appointed psychiatrist, Ian Sale, who was of the opinion that Bryant could be regarded as having shown a mixture of conduct disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity, and a condition known as Asperger's syndrome. Psychiatrist Paul Mullen, hired at the request of Bryant's legal counsel, found that Bryant was socially and intellectually impaired. Furthermore, finding that he did not display signs of schizophrenia or a mood disorder. Mullen concluded, though Mr. Bryant was clearly a distressed and disturbed young man, he was in fact not mentally ill. Now we move into his young adulthood and suspicious deaths. In early 1987, when Bryant was 19, he met 54-year-old Helen Mary Elizabeth Harvey, heiress to a share in the Tattersalls lottery fortune. While looking for new customers for his lawn mowing service is how he met Elizabeth. Harvey, who lived with her mother Hilsa, befriended Bryant, who became a regular visitor to her neglected mansion in Newtown and assisted with such tasks as feeding the 14 dogs living inside the house. Oh my goodness. And the 40 cats living inside her garage. Wow. So, here we have this guy who we know kills and tortures animals, and he is set in charge of, 54 or more of them? Just wow. And 40 cats in a garage? What? Oh my God. Like, this lady, honestly, I don't know these people, obviously, but 40 cats in a garage, that is cruel. That's, oh God, could you imagine the smell? And yes, I have read through all this before, but it still stuns me when I read it, that 40 cats in a garage. Oh my goodness. Let's just move on. In June 1990, an unidentified person reported Harvey to the health authorities, and medics found that both Harvey and her mother were in need of urgent hospital treatment, with Helen suffering from infected ulcers and Hilsa with a hip fracture. Hilsa Harvey was moved into a nursing home and passed away several weeks later at the age of 79. A mandatory clean-up order was placed on the decaying mansion, and Bryant's father took long service leave to assist in cleaning the interior. The local RSPCA unit had to confiscate many animals living in the home. Following the mandatory clean-up, Harvey now invited Bryant to live with her in the mansion, and they began spending extravagant amounts of money, which included the purchase of more than 30 new cars in less than 3 years. The odd pair of friends began to spend most of their days together, extensively shopping, and usually after having a lunch at a local restaurant. At around this time, Bryant was reassessed for his pension, and a note was attached to the paperwork. Father protects him from any occasion which might upset him as he continually threatens violence. Martin tells me he would like to go around shooting people. It would be unsafe to allow Martin out of his parents' control. And this is very important for later if you are not familiar with this case. In 1991, as a result of no longer being allowed to have animals at the house, Harvey and Bryant moved together onto a 29-hectare or 72-acre farm called Touristville that she had purchased in Copping, a small township. Neighbours recalled that Bryant always carried an air gun and often fired it at tourists as they stopped to buy apples at a stall on the highway. And that late at night, he would roam through the surrounding properties, firing the gun at dogs when they barked at him. They avoided him at all costs, despite his attempts to befriend them. And I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't want to be friends with somebody like that, can you? On the 20th of October 1992, Harvey was killed at the age of 59 along with two of her dogs when her car veered onto the wrong side of the road and hit an oncoming car directly. Bryant was inside the vehicle at the time of the accident and was hospitalised for 7 months with severe neck and back injuries. He was briefly investigated by the police for the role he played in the accident, as Bryant had a known habit of lunging for the steering wheel, and Harvey had already had 3 accidents as a result. She often told people that this was the reason she never drove faster than 60 kilometres an hour or 37 miles per hour. Harvey even allegedly said to a neighbour that one of these days, the little bastard, referring to Bryant, is going to kill me. Bryant was named the sole beneficiary of Harvey's will and came into possession of assets totalling more than Australian dollars of $550 million. As Bryant had only the vaguest notions of financial matters, his mother subsequently applied for and was granted a guardianship order, placing Bryant's assets under the management of public trustees. The order was based on evidence of Bryant's diminished intellectual capacity. After Harvey's death, Bryant's 60-year-old father, Maurice Bryant, looked after the Copping farm. Brian returned to the family home to convalesce after leaving the hospital. Maurice had been prescribed antidepressants and had discreetly transferred his joint bank account and utilities into his wife's name. 2 months later, on the 14th of August 1993, a visitor looking for Maurice at the Copping property found a note saying, "Call the police," pinned to the front door, and found several thousands of dollars in his car. The race officer at the time found no reason to suspect criminal intent and sent council members and police to quell the stresses put forward by letters sent to the local council chambers. Police searched the property for Maurice without success. Divers were called in to search the 4 dams on the property, and on the 16th of August, his body was found in the dam closest to the farmhouse. He was also found with a diving weight belt around his neck. Police described the death as unnatural, and it was ruled that he had taken his own life. Bryant then inherited the proceeds of his father's superannuation fund, valued at $250,000 Australian. Bryant later sold the Copping farm for Australian $143 million and kept the Newtown mansion. While living at Copping, the white overalls he habitually wore were replaced with clothing more in line with Harvey's financial status. Now that he was alone, Bryant's dress became more bizarre. He often wore a grey linen suit, cravat, lizard skin shoes, and a Panama hat, while carrying a briefcase during the day, telling anyone who would listen that he had a well-paying career as a businessman. He often also wore an electric blue suit with flared trousers and a ruffled shirt to the restaurant that he frequented. The restaurant owner recalled it was horrible. Everyone was laughing at him, even the customers. I really felt suddenly quite sorry for him. as I realised this guy didn't really have any friends. With both his father and Harvey deceased, Bryant became increasingly lonely. From 1993 to late 1995, he visited various overseas countries 14 times, and a summary of his domestic airline travel filled 3 pages. Bryant had felt as lonely travelling as he did back home in Tasmania. He enjoyed the flights as he could speak to the people sitting adjacent to him who had no choice but to be polite. He later took great joy in describing some of the conversations he had with fellow passengers. Bryant ultimately became obsessed with thoughts of taking his own life after deciding he had had enough, he stated. I just felt more people were against me. When I tried to be friendly towards them, they just walked away. Although he had previously been little more than a social drinker, Bryant's alcohol consumption increased, and although he had not consumed any alcohol on the day of the Port Arthur massacre, it had especially escalated in the 6 months prior to that day. His average daily consumption was estimated at half a bottle of Sambuca and a bottle of Bailey's Irish Cream, supplemented with port wine and other sweet alcoholic drinks. According to Bryant, he thought the plan for Port Arthur might have first occurred to him 4 to 12 weeks before the event. And this brings us up to the day. Oh, it's making me shiver. Now, the tragic events that take place in today's case. Okay, this is going to be another hard one for me to get through, because I remember when this happened. I remember being riveted to the TV, wondering when they were going to catch this guy, and I don't want to spoil the timeline, but there is one part that really stuck out for me, and it's never left my mind ever since it happened. Oh, it's giving me the shivers right now. Actually, it's making me feel cold all over. But we're going to push on to the day of the Port Arthur massacre. Okay, so Bryant has provided conflicting and confused accounts of what led him to take the lives of 35 people at Port Arthur on the 28th of April 1996. It could have been his desire for attention, as he allegedly told a next-door neighbour, "I'll do something that will make everyone remember me." Bryant's defence psychiatrist Paul Mullen, former chief of forensic psychiatry at Monash University, said, "He followed Dunblane. His planning started with Dunblane before he was thinking about taking his own life. But Dunblane and the early portrayal of the killer Thomas Hamilton changed everything." And I will be featuring, actually as an adjunct to this, the Dunblane incident on a future Real Crime. I'm pretty sure Dunblane is in Scotland or Ireland. I don't know much about that yet, so I need to research it, but that will be a video for Real Crime UK when I find out the exact location. But please stay tuned, because we will visit that case so that we can better understand what might have been going on in Martin Bryant's head, if that's even possible. And now comes the day of the tragic events that unfolded. Bryant's first victims were David and Noeline Martin. They owned the bed and breakfast guest house called Seascape. The Martins had bought the bed and breakfast that Bryant's father had wanted to buy, and his father had complained to him on a number of occasions of the damage done to Bryant's family because of said purchase. Bryant apparently believed the Martins bought the property out of spite towards his family, and he also blamed the Martins for causing the depression that led to his father's alleged, I'm going to say at this stage, taking of his own life. Martin Bryant fatally shot the Martins in the guest house and stole their weapons and the property keys before travelling to the Port Arthur site. At Port Arthur, Bryant entered the Broad Arrow Cafe on the grounds of the historic site. carrying a large blue duffel bag. While he was eating, Bryant attempted to start conversations with random people about the lack of wasps in the area and the lack of usual Japanese tourists. It's kind of a strange conversation for somebody to start up with people. Once he finished eating, Bryant moved towards the back of the cafe and set a video camera on a vacant table. He took out a Colt AR-15 SP1 carbine semi-automatic rifle and, firing from the hip, began shooting the patrons and the staff.
He never ran, he walked everywhere, just shooting people.
Within 15 seconds, he had fired several shots, ending the lives of 12 people and wounding 10. Bryant then walked to the other side of the shop and fired 12 more times, ending the lives of 8 people while wounding 2. He then changed magazines before fleeing, shooting at people in the car park and from his yellow Volvo 244. As he drove away, 4 had their lives taken, an additional 6 were injured. And this next bit, I hate this. Oh my God, this next part. Oh, this is the part that hasn't ever left me ever since this happened. This is probably one of the worst parts of the whole thing. Composure. Bryant drove 300 metres down the road to where a woman and her 2 children were walking. He stopped and fired 2 shots. He ended the life of the woman and the child that she was carrying. The older child fled, but Bryant followed her and ended her life with a single shot. Oh my goodness, I could not get over this when it happened. It was just a mum out for a walk with her daughters, trying to give them a nice day. There was more came out about these people after everything happened, and just the fact that the little surviving girl tried to run, and he went after a child and did what he did, and it's just, oh my God, it breaks my heart. Like, the whole thing was tragic. Everybody whose lives he ended and the people that he injured on this day, but it was just this lovely young mother with her 2 little girls. It just, kids get me every time, like I've said before, animals, children and elderly, but and young mothers that, you know, they're having this lovely day with their children, and then somebody just comes up and it's all gone. And it's just like, you do have to grow a thick skin if you're going to present content like this, but some of it still really gets into your heart, these things that happen. And honestly, I think I'd be more worried if I just sat here and presented this and I didn't feel anything. But the young mum and the 2 little girls, I never forgot them. Not in all the years since it happened. He then stole a gold BMW by ending all 4 lives of its occupants. A short distance down the road, he stopped beside a couple in a white Toyota and, drawing his weapon, ordered the male occupant into the boot of the BMW. After shutting the boot, he fired 2 shots into the windscreen of the Toyota, ending the life of the female driver. This is just such a horror show. Bryant returned to the guest house, set the stolen car alight and took his hostage inside, where he had left the bodies of the Martins. The police soon arrived and tried to negotiate with Bryant for several hours before the battery in the phone he was using ran out, ending the communication. Bryant's only demand was to be transported in an army helicopter to an airport. During the negotiations, Bryant ended the life of his hostage. The next morning, 18 hours later, he set fire to the guest house and attempted to escape in the confusion. Suffering burns to his back, Bryant was captured and taken to Royal Hobart Hospital, where he was treated and kept under heavy guard. And now we get to his trial and his imprisonment. So Bryant was judged fit to stand trial, which was scheduled to begin on the 7th of November 1996. He initially pleaded not guilty, but was persuaded by his court-appointed lawyer, John Avery, to plead guilty to all charges. 2 weeks later, Hobart Supreme Court Judge William Cox gave Bryant 35 life sentences, plus 1,652 years in prison without the possibility of parole, all of which is to be served concurrently. This life sentence being applied is for the term of his natural life. For the first 8 months of his imprisonment, Bryant was held in a purpose-built, special ending-your-life prevention cell in almost complete solitary confinement. He remained in protective custody for his own safety until the 13th of November 2006, when he was moved into Hobart's Wilfred Lopez Centre, a secure mental health unit run by the Tasmanian Department of Health and Human Services. The 35-bed unit for inmates with serious mental illnesses is staffed with doctors, nurses and other support workers. Inmates are not locked down and can come and go from their cells. Exterior security at the facility is provided by a 3-wall perimeter patrolled by privately contracted guards. The 5th of July 2003, an incident would occur that led an inmate to spray a cleaning solution into his eyes. He would be transferred to Royal Hobart Hospital. On the 25th of March 2007, Bryant attempted to end his own life by slashing his wrists with a razor blade. On the 27th of March, he cut his throat with another razor blade and was hospitalised briefly. Martin Bryant is currently housed in the maximum security Risdon Prison near Hobart. And now we get to the media coverage and what came out of that. So, newspaper coverage immediately after the Port Arthur massacre raised serious questions about journalistic practices, and criticism was directed toward Australian media. Photographs of Bryant published in The Australian had his eyes digitally manipulated with the effect of making him appear deranged and glaring. Despite criticism, the manipulated photographs continued to be used in the media, reporting a decade later. There were also questions as to how the photos had actually been obtained. The Tasmanian Director of Public Prosecutions warned the media that the coverage compromised Bryant's right to a fair trial, and writs were issued against The Australian, the Hobart Mercury, which used Bryant's picture under the headline, "This is the Man," The Age and the ABC. The chairman of the Australian Press Council at the time, David Flint, argued that because Australian newspapers regularly ignored contempt of court provisions, this showed that the law, not the newspapers, needed to change. Flint suggested that such a change in the law would not necessarily lead to trial by media. Australian newspapers also came under critical scrutiny of their accounts of Bryant and how the kind of identity responsible for his and other similar kinds of killing might be understood. And this is the trouble with a lot of the media stuff. A lot can get lost or misconstrued in conjecture. There is a lot that might be misconstrued by the way sometimes the media presents things. There was also a political aftermath surrounding the events that happened at Port Arthur in 1996. So as a response to the spree killing, Australian state and territory governments placed extensive restrictions on all firearms, including semi-automatic centre-fire rifles, repeating shotguns, and this would be the ones that held more than 5 shots, and high-capacity rifle magazines. In addition to this, limitations were also put into place on low-capacity repeating shotguns and rimfire semi-automatic rifles. Though this resulted in stirring controversy, opposition to the new laws was overcome by media reporting of the massacre and mounting public opinion in the wake of the shootings. And of course, this leached into the popular culture of Australia. In March 2012, Sydney artist Rodney Popel controversially won the Australian $35,000 Glover Prize for his landscape painting depicting Port Arthur with Bryant in the foreground holding a firearm. In 2019, Bryant's Massacre was referenced in the lyrics of Pond's song, The Boys Are Killing Me, featured on their album Tasmania. The 2021 film Night Tram, directed by Justin Kurzel, is based on Bryant's life, with Caleb Landry Jones in the role of Martin Bryant. Jones won the Cannes Film Festival Award for the Best Actor for his portrayal. And that is where we leave the sad events. Oh, some of these cases just really get to me, especially the ones I can remember. Oh my goodness. The sad events of Port Arthur in 1996. As always, flip it. Sorry guys, this case just gets to me. Oh, as always, our thoughts, prayers and our hearts go out to the survivors of the Port Arthur Massacre. Sorry guys. Oh, this case gets to be so bad. This case was requested by one of my subscribers. They wanted to know about it. And when you guys ask me to present a case, then yes, I will always do it, even if it is one that gets to me so bad, because I was a young adult when this happened. I was 23 when Martin Bryant did all this. And, you know, I was just fresh out of home myself. I just moved in with my now husband. This is before I'm married. And I can remember I had this weeny tiny little television set. It was a little portable one. And we had it set up in our lounge room. I can just remember the news reports coming across, and it, you know, this incident was happening in Port Arthur, and as they were finding more and more of the victims and people being taken to hospital that had been injured by this man, and how frightened we all felt for the people of Port Arthur and the area that he was in, because he hadn't been caught yet. And I think for a while they didn't actually know where he was, and then it was like waiting for the siege to end so that the police could take him away. And then all the reports started coming in about all the people that had become deceased because of Martin Bryant. And like the older people and the people at the guest house were bad enough, but the mother with the two little daughters, it's like Anita Cobby and Sally Ann Huckstep. Sorry guys, I needed a minute. These are people that I've never forgotten, and this is why I do these videos, so that the victims are not forgotten and the things that these monsters did are not forgotten. But as I was saying before, as always, our prayers, hearts and thoughts go out to the survivors of this horrible tragedy and the families of the people who didn't make it. And that's where we leave today's case. Sorry, I kept getting emotional with this one. If you were around then and you saw the news reports, you were sitting there waiting for news on what was going to happen and how many victims there were, it was just simply awful. So I'm sorry that if I got a bit emotional today, guys, but this is a case that does get to me, and that's why I sort of did leave it for such a long time to actually present here on the channel. But I did have a subscriber ask me about it the other day, and I suggested I would feature it. So that's why it got featured today. So please, everybody, as I always say, stay safe. Just always be aware. I mean, guys, if something doesn't feel right, just turn your back, walk away. Somebody's making you feel scared or whatever, go to the police, go to a place where there's a lot of people, go for help. Don't ever try and do anything on your own if you're afraid or you're suspecting somebody just isn't quite right, because that's a gut feeling that you can't ignore. And I am very thankful that this case is finished. So thank you once again for watching, and yeah, as I said, please stay safe, stay happy, and I will be seeing you all again very, very soon in my next video. Bye for now. In loving memory of the victims of the Port Arthur Massacre: Nolene Joyce Martin, David Martin, Mo Yi William, Sue Lee Chung, Kate Elizabeth Scott, Anthony Nightingale, Kevin Vincent Sharp, Walter John Bennett, Raymond John Sharp, Andrew Bruce Wills, Tony Vadavilu Kistan, Sarah Kate Lofton, Mervyn John Howard, Mary Elizabeth Howard, Nicole Louise Burgess, Elizabeth Jane Howard, Leslie Dennis Lever, Gwenda Joan Neander, Jason Bernard Winter, Ronald Noel Jarry, Peter Brenton Nash, Pauline Viara Masters, Royce William Thompson, Winifred Joyce Applin, Janet Kathleen Quinn, Eva Rhonda Gaylard, Nanette Patricia Meekak, Madeline Grace Meekak, Alana Louise Meekak, Robert Graham Salzman, Russell James Pollard, Mary Rose Nixon, Helena Maria Salzman, Zoe Ann Hall, and Glenn Roy Pears. May they all rest in peace.